Hello, I'm Corey. Welcome to episode 20 of Flips, Flaps, and Folds. Today I decided that, while having looked back through the book, that I haven't done a lot of the flips and the flaps on the folds part. So today we're going to be making one that's another trifold, but it's a different version of a trifold. And I've used book page simply because, one, we all have it, and two, it's thin. So even though we're going to be using 7 pieces of book page for this project, you can certainly substitute it with cardstock or digitals or what have you. But even with that many pieces of paper, it's still relatively thin, and it makes a fun addition. So the way this one works, and this is sort of a sample, it opens top and bottom, and the top has a tuck spot or a pocket in it. I'll use Breck there as a sample. And the bottom has a tuck spot or a pocket in it. And there are 2 pockets on the back. Now, of course, these can be decorated if you choose, or left blank, and the tags, the tucks that you put in there, journaling cards, can be the decoration. I haven't seen this particular fold before, but if it exists, and it probably does, simply because there's nothing unique or special about it. Patricia Viramontes, I have been told, is the lady who uses a lot of book page and makes a lot of pockets and such. So she may have done something similar to this. If so, I haven't seen it because I don't watch her channel. But I was watching a Carol Laws video, and she did nothing like this, but I started playing with paper and folding things, and I ended up with coming up with 3 or 4 different things that, again, may have very well been done before, but I thought they'd be appropriate for this. And really all you need to do this is 7 pieces of book page. You can use different book page, or you can use the same book page. And before I go on, if you had a question, let's see, I'm going to cover some questions that were asked of me in earlier videos, some updates regarding the challenges that I've been taking part on, and I'll cover some upcoming videos. So if you're interested in that, just hang on at the end. But for those who just want the pocket, I'm going to go over that first, okay? All right, and thank you, Breck, for your assistance, and I'll show you what we do next. All right, I haven't glued it in the book yet, simply because I want to do something to the back, the remaining background of the page. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, and hopefully that'll make it a little easier for you. And I'll put it here. Okay, so again, this is what it's going to look like. There is a flip and a flap, and we do fold things, and then there's some tucks and some pockets. And so my recommendation with this is just, don't overthink it. Just grab a stack of book page, maybe a section or a signature that you've had in a book, and something that you like working with, something with a fairly neutral print, and let's just go. But again, once you've done it once or twice, you can certainly substitute digitals or any paper that you want. All right, so 7 pieces of paper for this, and I'm not going to care. I generally don't show when I'm using dictionary, I don't usually show the tops that give you, there's a name for that, but it's escaping me right now because I'm tired. But I generally don't show those. I'll sew them off. I think that this particular project works better with sewing simply because it is so thin, and I don't find any glue stick is strong enough to hold it nicely and tightly once you put things in it. And when you use wet glue or even Fabri-Tac, what happens is you get a little bit of a warp because of the thinness of the paper. So what I generally do when I do this project is I use glue stick just to hold it temporarily until I sew it. But you don't have to. You certainly can just use regular old glue. Okay, so 7 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, I should have had this done. 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so 7 pieces of paper. And like you saw there, I just tore it right off the stack. The back one is going to be the very back of the book, so I'll push that to the side. Then I am going to make the inside. I'll build on the back, and I'll take 1 piece and fold it in half. Oh, that has a really pretty flower on it. So good. I like that. Sometimes when I'm working with dictionary, I'll look at what's in there, what's on the page, to see if I want that to show. And it doesn't even have to be a perfect in half, just kind of in half. If I were making this for myself, I would ink this now because it's simply because it's easier to ink it before you sew it. And I like ink. Not everybody does, and that's certainly a personal preference, but I like the fact that the aster is showing and I would ink right here. But it's just book page, so I don't particularly care if it's not perfect. Okay, and then, so back page, that's page 1 page and a half. 1 page in about, I don't know, a third-ish, something like that. And again, it's not an exact science. It doesn't have to be perfect. And it doesn't really matter what size book pages you use, other than you want to make sure, and, oh, sorry, my inking thing, my gluing sheet. Other than you want to make sure that, I lost my train of thought, sorry. Doesn't matter what size, oh, whatever size you use, it'll fit in whatever journal you're putting it in. There you go. So I'm going to glue this down. Actually, I need to glue both of these down. Sorry. I'm going to glue both of these. Hence, I had made the kids some order of operations PEMDAS charts, and I had a couple that didn't print correctly, so those become my glue papers. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to ultimately sew it into the booklet that we're making, so I don't care so much if the glue isn't even or perfect or what have you. Okay. The idea is just to get as tight down as you can and with as few wrinkles as possible. Okay, so that one's glued. And now I'm going to glue this one. I'm going to do the same thing, just glue that one little section. I haven't found a glue stick that I consistently love. I have long said glue sticks are for kindergartners, and I'm only kind of joking when I say that, but it's partially true because I find them to be very inconsistent. I like the Gorilla Glue stick real well, but even then, I don't think that one's perfect either. If you don't use enough, or if you use too much, or what have you. So that's totally personal preference. Okay, so again, if I were going to put this in my journal, I would ink this edge, and I would ink this edge before I continued. Okay, so remember, we're building the back page of that trifold flip. And then I just kind of guesstimate where I want it to go. I kind of just place it so that it's about thirds. And it doesn't have to be perfect by any means. If you wanted to take notches out of these, you could take notches out in ink to make it look more like pockets. And sometimes I do, but you don't have to. It's not a requirement. And especially because we're working with something larger, it's going to be a larger piece like a journaling card or something that I would tuck into this, or maybe even a photo if I were giving it as a gift. It doesn't have to be that way. So when I have about an idea of where I want it, now I am going to ultimately glue or sew all the way around this rectangle, all the way around the outside, and that'll hold these pockets, or the top and the bottom, down. What I do in the interim is I'll just put a little bit of glue to hold it in place while I sew it. And for sewing machines, once glue stick is dry, I haven't had any problem with it gumming up. So I will do that. And then I'm going to do the same thing. But here, I'm going to sew down this side. And I'm just kind of hiding that little spot that is my center tuck. So I'm going to glue it down, again, just around the top and the edge, because I want to leave the two pockets open, the two large pockets. And they're only large because I'm using larger book pages. You can certainly use smaller book pages for this. I'm just gluing around the edges. And again, if I used this particular glue, it would dry bumpy, which I don't really like. But I suppose if you went real light, it would work. And when I'm doing this, I don't overly get concerned about things matching up, because when I'm done, I am going to come in and trim this off. So if I were going to sew right now, I would come in and I would sew, and I would use the book page, the print on the book, as my guideline, and I would come and I would sew right around here, okay? So this piece isn't going to show, and this piece isn't going to show, and I'm going to trim these off later, so it doesn't matter if this is perfectly formatted, all right? So that's the back piece, and then the top and the bottom pieces are next. And the way I do this so that my print goes in the correct direction, and I'll grab it here and show you what I mean. Where did I put it? Oh, I'm sorry, I put it underneath. Okay. So obviously with book page, when we lift it up and down, the print changes direction. Well, when I glue these together, these two pieces, I flip one so that when I lift this up, the print's going in the right direction. When I flip it down, the print's going in the right direction. And the same thing with the bottom. I just flip one page around. But before I flip one page around, book page is thin. So I'm going to turn one this way, well, this way, I guess, and one this way. Is there anything I don't want to see on there? I guess it doesn't really matter. That suit armor is kind of cool. So I'm going to have one upside down and one right side up. And I am going to fold the top section in. Now, if I were sewing, I would go over to my machine and I would sew just this piece down right now. I would sew that. And I would sew this piece down right now. And you can just eyeball it. You don't have to score it. But because I'm not going to use the sewing machine for this, I'm just going to glue it down. And I do that simply because it's so thin. This just makes it a little sturdier. For no other reason than that. Also, just like with the other one, I chose not to cut a divot out of this, but this is going to be a pocket. So you certainly could, if you wanted to, take a divot right in here and here. All right, so when I glue these together, I make sure one is right side up and one is upside down. Okay, good deal. Because when I fold this up, look, my print is going the right way. And when I fold it down, my print is going the right way. And again, I want this to be a pocket, so I'm not going to glue. Am I even in frame? Yeah, good. I'm not going to glue the center. I'm just going to glue the edges. So I want it to stick together temporarily while I sew it. And yeah, like that. Doesn't have to match perfectly because I am ultimately going to trim it down. All right, and that holds it in place. That's one, and I'm doing the exact same thing with the second one. I am going to take both pieces, maybe, if I remember where I put them. Okay, make sure one is upside down and one is right side up, just like this. And I am going to fold one end over, and I'm going to fold the other end over. I really liked that little, whatever it was. I don't know, there was an image there that I thought was pretty cool, so I wanted to keep it. It is, I don't even know what it is. An arpeggio. Okay, that's kind of cool. I thought that was pretty neat. So, again, I want to make sure one is right side up and one is upside down. And I'm going to glue these two flaps that I just folded under. Or I would sew them before I glued anything together. And then I am going to put these two pieces together just like this. Same idea. I'm going to glue just around the edges. And it'll make more sense in just a moment, maybe. All right. Okay, glue down, up and down. All right, just making sure I've got the pieces going in the opposite directions. And I try, now this piece I'm not going to cut because it's the edge that I fold. So I do try to line this up pretty close, but it doesn't have to be perfect by any means. Okay, so in my world, I would sew all of these pieces. I've already sewn this one allegedly right around here. And then I would do the same thing with these two. But remember, I've already sewn the part that opens, so I'm not going to sew that. I'm just going to sew 1, 2, 3 sides. You know what I'm going to do? Because we can play pretend. I am going to show you where I would sew it to make it a little bit more obvious. I'll just use my black pen. And so pretending I'm a sewing machine, I'm going to sew here. Or I guess I could glue. Do the same thing. I'm going to glue here, here, and here. Okay. And I would do the same thing on this one. I'm going to line these up so that my sewing lines are about the same. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect by any means. I'm going to sew here, or glue, here, and line those two up so they mostly match, and here. So those are going to be my sewing lines on both of these pieces. And on this one, these would be my sewing lines about. And again, I would, well, you know what, just going to do it. We're just going to eyeball it and call it close enough, because this, even the glue lines, the sewing lines, they don't have to match exactly, because each piece is separate and works independently until you put them together. And even then, they're separate pieces just combined, if that makes sense. They each have separate functions. Okay. All right, so that's where I would sew or glue, just to make sure that it all fits and is nice and neat and tidy. All right, so this is sewn or glued down. There we go. Okay, sewn or glued down. Come on, there we go. It does not want to cooperate, and it would rather be sewn. And this is the back piece. Now, after I'd sewed or glued this, I would trim the excess off where they don't match up perfectly. And this is the back. This is going to be my top. So I am going to put it behind, because this is ultimately going to be glued down to my page. So if you see on the back here, I could make that a tuck spot and I could glue this down, but there's already 6 pockets in this. No, 4 pockets in this. And I think for this particular fold, that's enough, because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's enough for this one. But I could, this one's almost full size of my book, but if I were making it smaller, I could tuck something in the back or on the side. But for the sake of ease, and I think that's enough for this one. All right, so centerpiece. Sorry, I'll move that out of the way. Centerpiece, and then top and bottom. And when I flip this, I want to make sure that my pocket opens, right? Remember, this is where I've glued or sewed it down, and this is where it's glued or sewn. I want to make sure my pocket opens up. So this is going to be the back, and you can make them meet in the middle if you want to. You can make one longer than the other. You just want to make sure that they overlap at least a little bit. So I'm going to put this back for my bottom flap, okay? And then I will glue, or actually, I don't usually even sew it. I would glue this because I want this to go on the back. Again, remembering we're assuming that we've glued or sewed those sections. All right, I'll put it down here. And then this is the flap, where's Breck, with the tuck or the pocket. Right? This is where my tuck or pocket is, and these are my sew lines. So that's my bottom one. It flips down. I could have this as writing space, and I probably would if this were my journal, because I don't like my writing to show. So maybe I would put solid paper back here instead of book page. That's a good possibility. So this is the bottom flap, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the top flap. I'm going to tuck it in the back and fold it down. Oh, I almost didn't make it long enough, did I? Or I folded that up too much. Oh, that'll work. I can make that work. Since I've already glued it, you can see what I did here on this sample. I shouldn't have, well, let's see if I can take it off. No, I can't. I should have made sure that my top piece was long enough before I put my bottom piece on. And it is. It's I can make it work. But see, this is where I want it to open. So it opens here and here. And so what I'll do is I'll just lay it over each other like that. And I'm going to make sure this my center seam matches. And not that it really matters, because I usually put an embellishment or something on it. But, you know, just for the sake of making it match. And then I will fold it over and glue it down here. And that makes the top flap. And then I'm just going to glue this down for the sake of speed and ease. All right. Tuck that back up. Hold it down. Okay. So here is my completed insert, I guess is what it is. I've got my tuck right here, and on the one I had, I just put a little simple embellishment there. So I've got my top tuck. I flip it up, and I could have writing space here or room for a picture. That looks pretty cute there. And then I've got the 2 tucks inside, and then I've got the bottom tuck. Maybe it's there. There we go. And the bottom tuck. And decorated as simply or as elaborately as you like. And again, I think I might, in hindsight, put coffee dyed paper right here just so I could have some journaling space. But maybe not. It's kind of fun with the book page too. You could make different kinds of closures here if you wanted to, but I find that the weight of my embellishment holds it down nicely and holds this in place. It keeps this piece from flapping down. And that is it. That is fold or item number 20 in our flips, flaps, and folds. So thank you for watching. And if you were just here for the insert, that's it. And now I'm going to go on and answer a couple questions that folks had. I try to write down the questions as they come up and so that I can answer them in the next episode. And the first was, why am I not doing the videos every day like I was? I got a couple questions like that. Well, for a lot of reasons. One, it just takes a lot of time to do the samples and do the videos. And I want to be cognizant of your time as well as my own. Plus, there's other things I like to do. And that was one of the other questions I had. What am I working on? Well, I'm working on some slow stitch needle books. I've been having fun playing with sewing. And so I'm working on those. But I've also been doing the challenges, which leads me to another one of the questions. Where are my challenge pieces? Okay, so one of the challenges that I was doing was Tina's at Shabby Dabby Doodah, and she had one for an acrostic for October where we put the items. Whoops, I don't even know. Oh, no, it was November, excuse me, not October. And so I did that one for November, I think I showed you. And then I did December and then January. And I don't believe, at least not the last time I looked, there wasn't one for February. And so I got a little antsy. And so I made one myself. I just did my own February acrostic and used foliage, which I called the leaves, embroidery, the French knots, a bag. This is just one of those utensil bags you get at the corner bakery or corner cafe. Rose could be the color or the flower. Ultra, that means over the top. And I thought I would consider putting this sheer chiffon, kind of an over the top thing. So ultra. An angel, I had this super shiny gold angel wings, metal angel wings. And what I did was I used sandpaper first, or an emery board, and filed it. And then I used walnut stain ink, and then I used Seth Apter Vintage Beeswax. And that was another question somebody had. It's embossing powder, but it's called Seth Apter, A-P-T-E-R, Vintage Beeswax. And I haven't been able to find it in the U.S. One of my very sweet friends from the U.K. sent the little bit that I have, and I absolutely love it. So I did that for the embossing powder, just to kind of tone down the gold a little bit and give it more of a vintagey feel. And then red, the center of the rose is kind of a crimson-y red color. And then yardage. And so I did a couple of different, seam binding and just some froofy ribbon. I don't even know what it's called. And it has little gold spots on it to match this. And so there was my February challenge. So there's that one. The Marguerite Miller challenge. Sweet Gail Augustinelli got me hooked on that, and it's been way, way fun. And I originally just started doing them independently, and then I decided I wanted to use my clusters, the clusters I like to make, the scrap clusters, as the center piece for each one. I knew I was going to do 6 by 6, and I had originally started using, a combination of modern and just whatever. And then I said, no, I was enjoying it a lot more by just doing my cluster as the main idea and then building out from there. And so let's see, this was week 1. This is week 2. And I had made this a while ago before I redid some of them. And I don't even know if I'm in frame. I apologize. So there's week 1. There's week 2. And week 3. Week 4, this was way outside of my comfort zone, but I don't know if you can see it. But these are little clear dots that are like water spots, and I thought those were really pretty. I don't generally do Victorian or roses or that type of thing at all, so that was outside of my comfort zone, but it was fun. And then week 5 and week 6. So those are the Marguerite Miller challenges. I'm up to date on that. And then the other one, the slow stitch one, Oh no, there was two more. So Nina Ribena and Kylie Koo have a mixed media emporium. And I was originally doing all of that challenge, or I planned to. But then as I started working on this, making the cover was one of the challenges. And then I started kind of, paralleling the tags I was making for the Anne Brooks challenge, kind of with the cover here. So I had started with just an old piece of quilt that my mom had done. I don't quilt, but my mom does. And I'd added some yo-yos and lace. And then everything that I did for the Anne Brooks challenge, I just kind of carried it over and added it. Well, I won't be able to do that for 52 weeks by any means. And let me see if I can zoom out just a little bit. There you go. But I've been having fun slow stitching some of the stuff on, and adding French knots and beads and flowers and hearts and all of that kind of stuff. So that's where this is, and I'm sure I'll be done with it. It'll be full before the 52 weeks are up, but I just kind of add as I go. And rather than using this for the Nina Ribena and Kylie Koo challenge, I am going to use it to house the 52 tags when I'm done with those. At least that's the plan. We'll see how fat they get. And here is week 1, which was white. Week 2 was hearts. Week 3 was this ruffly bit. Week 4 was this fly stitch. And so I thought fly birdie, okay. Week 5 was these kisses. These little X deals are called kisses, apparently, in embroidery. Week 6 was buttons, a bevy of buttons. And sometimes I change these after I make them. Like this one, it was kind of just too much white for me with just a smidgen of red. So I added a few leaves and I'm happier with it. And then this one I did today because it's snowing here in Southwest Washington. No, not Southwest Washington, Central Washington. And it doesn't do that here very often. So my cave doesn't have any windows. So I sat in my room so I could enjoy the snow. And I just did those needle books, or worked more on those needle books, and worked on this today. And the challenge this week's was hexagons. So that's where those are. So those are the challenges. Let's see. There were a couple more questions. Let's see. Oh, triple fold. Okay, so somebody had a question about the triple fold I did. In the book it was this one. Where is it? In the book it was this one, about how you sew the pockets on a 12 by 12 like this and not have it go through. So again, this works for any size journal, album, what have you. You can make it in any size you want. So I just took a piece of printed digital paper and folded it in half to get my dimensions, and then I folded it in so that, when I put the little ephemera piece right here, it'll hold it into that trifold. And then what I do is I unfold it, and I just took a couple scraps of vellum and I sewed the vellum on, and that is what makes the pockets. Breck's too big for this. Here, I'll use the, oh, I know, I've got one right here. I've got a little tag right here. So that makes the little pocket, and that's why it doesn't go all the way through, because I folded it, but I haven't glued it or sewn it together yet. And so this is the back pocket. This is the tuck pocket over here. This is the tuck pocket over here. So I sewed those on before I glue the whole thing together. Then what I would do is, I guess you could make this a side tuck too, and this a side tuck too, or a top tuck, or what have you. But then I would put the embellishment on the front to act as an anchor to hold the book closed. So there's that. I hope that clarified. Somebody else asked me what stamp cards are. And stamp cards are just, I'm sure other people use them too, but they're my own thing. So I will get, I'll take my scrap bins, and these are my cardstock and my plain paper scrap bins. And when I see that I'm low on stamp cards, I'll just grab some tracing paper or vellum and a piece of cardstock. And then really, I just kind of wrap it around and sew it together. And that's kind of all it really is. And it's a way to make include stamps as a tuck spot, or as a, as a tuck spot or as an insert. And you can do it like I did here with a couple little pockets. And again, it was just based on the size of my scraps. Or this one, I could use it for something other than stamps, like this small tag I could. Or I could just fill it up with a variety of stamps and, use that as a gift or, again, as an insert. And this one, I made it double-sided because I had a scrap of vellum. So you could, put this in with a paper clip to make it come in and out and stuff. So anyway, that's a stamp card. I don't know if that's really what it's called, but that's what I call it. And that's how I came up with those. So there's a stamp card. That was another question. One of the questions I got was on this one. Why did I put, this one here. Why did I put this, am I even in frame? Okay, good. Why did I put the little envelope here? And the reason I did that is because this book, it has the little matchbook that we did, right? And it has an opening with places to write. Well, and then there's a little tuck. Where did that little guy go? There's a tuck spot here. Well, when you're writing, sometimes you might want to add something to what you're writing. So I would put tickets and Tracy tags and little bits like that so that you have the option when you're using this, when you're actually doing the writing, of adding a bit or two. And it's on the same page, and I would obviously fill it a little bit more, but that's the idea, and that's my reasoning for adding this piece to this page, just for pure function. Oh, let's see. I think that's all of those things. Upcoming classes or videos that I plan to do. I've had a couple people ask me about how I do my die cuts, how I do the decorating or embellishing die cuts. And this one has one here. These are both die cuts. And so I will do that. It's really simple. It's just a matter of steps and layers, but I'll do that in an upcoming video. And another question I've gotten several times is, not even so much as a question, but, I have a sewing machine, but I'm afraid to use it. Or how can you, I am not a seamstress. I don't sew well at all, but I have a new machine that my mom gave me. It's got a deeper arm. Haven't pulled it out, haven't looked at it. And so what I thought I would do is kind of bring it out and show you from somebody who hasn't seen that machine at all. They all essentially work the same way. And if you have just a basic understanding, I'm not saying don't read your manual, but I'm saying if you have just a basic understanding of the way it works, there is nothing in here that I make, I sew a lot, that you can't do. So that will be coming up. And then the last thing is, so many of you were incredibly kind. I had asked a question about, so many of you know I'm a teacher, and I buy books for my kids when we do a novel study because I want them to have the books in their hand, and I teach in a virtual world right now. And I had, I've got a lot of ephemera pieces that I've made, and would people be interested in purchasing them? Because I've had other people ask me if I'm going to open an Etsy store where they can buy my things, that kind of thing. So what I've been pondering is selling 5 for $10, 5 items, and I would include, let me grab this. Where did I put it? Sorry, hang on 2 seconds. I think it would be a variety of things. And then for our international people, they would obviously be flatter things. But I think I would do a cluster. So 5 random items, but one of the items would be one of my clusters because people seem, maybe the flat clusters, most interested in those, how I make clusters like this one. It's got a stamp on it, so it's fairly flat, even though there's a bit of lace. So I think it would include a cluster and maybe a scrap card, simply because I created that. Maybe somebody else has done it, but I've not seen it. Scrap cards must not be. Oh, here they are. And maybe a scrap card, because that's, again, it's using a die cut, and it's something that I don't want to brag. I was just playing and I came up with it. And again, other people may have done it too, but I hadn't seen it before. So I think of the 5 items, 2 would be some kind of a cluster and some kind of a scrap card, and then 3 other random bits. Where I've come into a challenge is I tried contacting the IRS, and that was an exercise in futility, because my question, they told me, is not a question that they can answer online. It's when I finally got through after an hour and a half, they said it's not one they answer online. And my question was, if I open an Etsy store, can I make it a nonprofit or a not-for-profit type business, because what would happen if there's any income generated, I would have to claim that on my taxes. Whereas I wouldn't be using it for me or my personal gain, I would use it for books for the kids. So looking into that has kind of proven to be a challenge. And I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to go forward, but I'll figure it out. And I will do it. And even if it's got to be something different, if it has to look a little bit different, I will continue to do it, because a lot of you have been so phenomenally wonderful and indicated interest in that. So my students and I both thank you. And that is today's video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy crafting.